Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 139. Nick Mundt, Realtree, Barbershops, and Freak Nasty. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible.
Today's show is sponsored by Morris's Sporting Goods and the Euro Hanger.
Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
This is Big Al Morris with Fox Pro Game Calls, and you're listening to my favorite deer hunting podcast, Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast.
Hey guys, it's Jim Caesar, owner of Swamp Bottom Media. Get ready for another amazing podcast with Jay and Dusty on the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
So my name is Jason Coger. I'm from Owensboro, Kentucky, and I represent the Jason Coger Foundation. You're listening to my favorite broadcast of all time, Big Buck Registry.
Welcome to another episode of the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. I don't know what you're doing exactly, but I'm sure hoping you're listening to this show. This is going to be a good one. Dusty, what's happening in Ohio?
Oh, man. A whole lot, Jay. The weather's crazy. That's one thing that's happening. And, hunting season, whitetail season's over. That's another thing that I'm kind of bummed about. A little bit of depression set in. I'm having some withdrawals. I'm not quite to the point where I need to go see a specialist yet, but hopefully it can stay that way where it's not too bad.
Gotcha. I see you got yourself a new tractor.
Yeah, sure did. The hay season's coming up. Won't be long be making hay here in Ohio, and needed a tractor to run some equipment with, and finally found one that fit my go and went and got it.
Very nice. Hey, I did a little shed hunting the other day. There's this one 8-pointer that's been walking around the house, or was back when they had antlers on their heads, and I've scoured every square inch of my little 5-acre backyard, and can't find anything yet. So the hunt is still on for the 8 points sheds. Yeah, it was nice to get out for 2 or 3 hours the other day.
Right. I'm kind of disappointed in myself. I've been doing other things, and the kids basketball and that sort of thing, being sick there for a week. It's been a bad year for me to get in the woods here so far, but hopefully things change, and I try to get out and do some shed hunt myself and get in the woods and just enjoy the outdoors. That's what it's all about, really.
Yeah. Well, if it would stop downpouring here in New Hampshire, I'm going to get back out there too. So it was fun just following the trails and just seeing what popped up. Nothing yet, but certainly found where all the deer are roaming, which is good information to hold for the future deer season.
Right on, for sure. Jay, who we got on the show today?
Today we have Nick Mundt from the Bone Collector. I don't know if you know who Nick is. He's one of the trio of the three that do the Bone Collector between Michael Waddell and Travis T-Bone Turner. So he's that third leg of that whole thing. And Nick he's a tremendous hunter. He grew up in South Dakota. He became a barber of all things. You wouldn't necessarily think that a professional hunter is a trained barber, but he is. And he was a guide for many, many years in South Dakota, and now he is a professional hunter and has been for a little while under the Bone Collector brand. He's got a very interesting story on how he got there.
Yeah, right on. Before we get to Nick Mundt, we need to get with Jim Keller with the Deer News. The Deer News this week is sponsored by the Euro Hanger. You don't have to spend big bucks to hang your big buck. Get yourself a Euro Hanger. Facebook.com/Eurohanger, EUROHANGER.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story, Alabama hunter harvests a dwarf deer. Joe Reddy of Tallahassee, Alabama, has harvested a dwarf whitetail buck. Joe killed the deer while hunting over the weekend of January 23rd and 24th. The deer is 25 inches in height and 44 inches from nose to tail. This story came from Deer and Deer Hunting website. It is written by Alan Clement. In researching this story, we also found trail cam pics of another dwarf deer that were also taken in Alabama. These pictures were from November and were posted on the QDMA chat forum. We do not know if it is the same deer that Joe harvested or not. Both stories seem to be based out of central Alabama. We also found other past stories that also made reference to dwarf deer in Alabama. If anyone knows additional details on these stories, or know of other dwarf deer sightings, please let us know. Chris Brackett has it wrong on CWD. Chris Brackett, host of Fear No Evil on the Outdoor Channel, told a reporter for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that, quote, there has never been an animal die of CWD, end quote. Word of his statement spread throughout all forms of media, social and others. It's extremely unfortunate that a TV hunter used his position in the hunting community as a pulpit to spread a false message about a disease that threatens the very future of deer hunting. Worse yet, people are reporting his statement as fact. A writer for one media source wrote, quote, Brackett's opinion is fresh, unique, and perhaps based on different information than what the public has gotten, end quote. Kip Adams, a biologist and director of educational outreach for the QDMA, stated, quote, what Chris said is absolutely false, end quote. Adams went on to say, quote, it can take several months or even years for an infected deer to show symptoms of CWD, but the disease is always fatal. The fact is very well documented, end quote. For the full story, please reference fieldandstream.com and look for the article by Will Brantley. 2 deer that escaped from Wisconsin deer farm had CWD. This story comes from an article by Paul A. Smith in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. 21 white-tailed deer escaped the Fairchild Whitetails Deer Farm near Eau Claire County on May 2nd of last year when a tree fell on the fence. Rick Votik, owner of the farm, didn't know it held deer with CWD until June of last year after the deer had escaped. 2 of the deer, bucks, who spent months outside the deer farm, were later found to have chronic wasting disease. The bucks spent more than 5 months roaming the rural area around Fairchild before being shot. In September, additional deer also managed to escape from the farm. None of this information is good news, but here is where the story really starts. This information was not reported by public officials, and the full story did not go public until agricultural, trade, and consumer protection representatives responded to questions from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. The Journal-Sentinel also reported that Votik, the owner of the farm, received an indemnity payment of $298,777 when the 228 deer on his farm were killed by state and federal agents. This money was reported to have come from the Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection's General Program revenue, which is funded by Wisconsin taxpayers. To date, no wild deer in Eau Claire or surrounding counties has tested positive. Reminders of upcoming dates and events. Michigan deer hunters, this is a reminder that all tree stands must be removed from public land by March 1st. Owners of equipment left on public land after March 1st are subject to a 90-day misdemeanor and a fine of $50 to $500 plus the cost of prosecution. And also, mark your calendar. The world's largest shed hunt is scheduled for March 12, 2016. The 3rd annual Shed Rally is less than 2 weeks away. This is an idea started by Whitetail Properties and is gaining popularity each year. Everyone is encouraged to go out shed hunting on Saturday, March 12th. Post various pictures or videos of your day on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram using hashtag ShedRally. People typically post pictures of the sheds they find, but also group pictures, videos, and other fun from the day. Those who post these to these social media sites will be eligible to win prizes from Whitetail Properties, legendary whitetails, and other supporters of the event. This concludes this week's edition of the Big Buck Registry's Deer News. If you have any ideas for future topics or have questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News.
Thanks to Jim Keller with the Deer News. And without further ado, here is Nick Mundt from The Bone Collector. Nick Mundt, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Just like to talk to you. We're big fans. We some of the stuff you guys do on Facebook and all your social media, it just cracks me up. And you guys have a great sense of humor, but you have a serious side to you too. And I appreciate all the things you do for hunting and the messages that you send.
Well, I appreciate that. We're all pretty blessed to get to do this. So we feel like our job is to promote hunting in a positive way, try to get new people on board, and just really show the good side of hunting and how it pertains to family. And I think the history of America and the history of the world is based on hunting. So it's our job to keep the spirit alive and get as many people involved as possible.
I completely agree with you there. Where would the world be if we didn't have hunting in our background as a culture? I mean, we probably wouldn't exist, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know what I'd be doing, because it's a huge part of my life. In fact, I've pretty much focused my whole life on it. To this point, I've never been married, never had any children, just because I've been chasing this dream of, being in the woods every day. And
too busy hunting, man. Too busy hunting.
Yeah. So it's been really good for me, and I just feel so blessed to get to do it and feel free when I'm out there chasing some kind of animal. Since I was a kid, I've been chasing pretty much anything that runs, swims, or flies away from me. So
that's so cool. That's what I do too. I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I've done some homework on you, Nick. I've done a little bit of research, and I understand you're from South Dakota. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep. Grew up in Spearfish. South Dakota is my hometown, right on the Wyoming line, right on the north edge of the Black Hills.
Oh, wow. Now, what was that like? That's a whole different ballgame, a lot of the different terrain than especially what I'm used to in the Northeast or what Dusty's used to in Ohio. But what was the landscape like? What was life like growing up back then?
The Black Hills of South Dakota are a very unique place. They're loaded with game. We've got pretty much all of the big game. We've got mule deer, whitetails, elk, antelope, turkeys. We've got bighorn sheep and mountain goats. We don't have any bears and we don't have any moose, but we've got pretty much all the other big game. And our upland game hunting in South Dakota, particularly central and eastern South Dakota, not so much where I'm from in the Black Hills, but we've got the best upland game hunting in the country when it comes to pheasants and grouse. And our waterfowl is fantastic there too, with close to 40 million waterfowl or something like that coming through there. And the Black Hills where I grew up is in the northern part of the Black Hills, pretty rugged country. We have big, deep canyons and real high peaks up to about 6,700 feet, 6,800 feet, I think, is our highest peak. It's called Crow Peak. It's the second highest point east of the Rockies, with the highest point being Harney Peak, which is in the southern Black Hills, kind of down in the Custer area. Yep. And we just hold a real diverse, group of wildlife. We have Merriam's turkeys, which are in abundance in the Black Hills. And then if you get a little further east, our turkeys are Rios and Merriam's. They're hybrids. Sometimes you'll kill one that looks just like a Rio. Sometimes one will look just like a Merriam's, and then sometimes they're kind of mixed. So, we have a really cool opportunity to kill 3 species of turkeys in South Dakota with the Rio, the Merriam's, and then in the eastern part of the state you can kill an eastern. And, it's just a really neat area there in the Black Hills. Our winters are fairly nice. We get snow, and it's not bitter cold like it is in eastern South Dakota and North Dakota. But we get these Chinook winds that come through, and at times it'll melt all the snow, and it'll be 50 degrees in the middle of the winter. Even some years when it's a real nice winter, guys golf all year round, and it's just a really nice place to live. The hills are covered with ponderosa pine. The foothills have oak trees and kind of oak brush, and our deer there are kind of a smaller variety, almost like a mountain whitetail that you find in western South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. And they're a smaller deer. I'd say a big buck would weigh, with guts, 200 pounds is a real good size one. And I'd say like on a 4.5-year-old buck, with all conditions right, his rack would be probably like in the 150s.
Wow.
So, we don't get those huge bucks like you get in Iowa on this side of the state. Now, central and eastern South Dakota is a kind of a different breed of animal. There's a lot better feed there. You got corn and soybeans and a lot of agriculture, where in the Black Hills, mainly the agriculture in the Black Hills is alfalfa. Yeah. And so these deer live on more of a carbohydrate-rich diet rather than a high-protein diet, and they just don't have as big of bodies. They're actually fairly small-bodied deer, but when a 135-inch buck comes walking through the trees, he's similar to some of those Texas deer. They look really big, and they just have a really nice rack structure compared to their body. So you're hunting a little bit smaller-bodied deer, but a beautiful deer, and kind of a tough place to hunt them. It's thick forest. Can't do a lot of glassing because it's thick, and so the way I always hunted them growing up as a kid was, you'd still hunt through the woods. A lot of guys sit in stands along trails and ridge tops, and it's just a really unique place to hunt with a lot of different game.
You just described and it's really piqued my interest. I got to be honest. I kind of overlook South Dakota a lot, but it sounds like a sportsman's paradise in a lot of ways.
Boy, it really is, and if you're a fisherman too, the Black Hills is phenomenal trout fishing. I'm not going to say that it has the biggest trout in the West, but definitely very abundant trout in our streams. We have rainbows and brook trout. and a lot of brown trout, German browns. And the thing I like about the German brown is it's a really aggressive fish, and you can catch them on just about any spinner or fly. They're voracious eaters, and they like to grab a lure. So they're really a fun fish to catch. And then when you get up in some of the lakes up in the high country up here, we've got lake trout and splake, and just really good trout fishing in all the streams. You can look at the tiniest little stream that's kind of going through the middle of a meadow, and if it's got little tiny pockets in it, you'll catch brook trout out of there, sometimes up to 10 inches long. And it's just a really cool place to come trout fish, and a lot of public water too.
It's amazing how you describe it. I wouldn't have said this until just now, but I have just put South Dakota on my bucket list of places I need to go to hang out and enjoy the outdoors. It is, and one of the great things that people really don't realize is how much public land we have in South Dakota. We have millions of acres of public ground. The Black Hills itself it's a huge playground. I mean, you can do all kinds of things there. There's a lot of turkey hunting in the spring. With a permit, you can ride four-wheelers, camp, ride horseback. There's about 500 miles, I think, now of groomed snowmobile trails. You can haul your snowmobiles out there to ride in the winter, or there's several places you can rent from. So the Black Hills are a playground really year-round, and it's a place that a lot of people know about, but not as many people as what you would think have been there. And I'd highly recommend it if you want to go on a Miriam's turkey hunt. And a lot of people, that's the species they need to finish the Grand Slam. Right.
The Black Hills of Wyoming and South Dakota on both sides of the line offer a lot of public land with a lot of turkeys. So really all you've got to do is buy a tag, get a Forest Service map, and there's 1 million acres of public land ready for you to go try to shoot a Miriam's.
Gosh dang, that is fantastic. And do you think other people overlook South Dakota as a place to go, like I just did or have been doing until just now, as a place that you really should visit as a sportsman?
I think they do, and I think a big reason for that is because the majority of the state is wide open. Yeah. So when you drive through South Dakota, you see 200 miles in the distance,
Right.
And there's places where you don't see a lot of trees, but these open areas, they hold a lot of animals. The central part of the state is predominantly pasture land and wheat fields. And as you drive through, you think, how can anything live out here? But it's just loaded with whitetails and mule deer. And like I said, all the upland game from Hungarian partridge and grouse to the pheasants. And as you get a little bit north in the central part of South Dakota is the prairie pothole region, which is absolutely loaded with waterfowl. There's more nesting waterfowl in the prairie pothole region of North Dakota, South Dakota, and the middle states in Saskatchewan, Manitoba. That's where the majority of the ducks and geese are, and just a really overlooked place for all species of hunting, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of people pass right through, going to other places, or maybe they skip over South Dakota because it's not on their radar. But it's just a really, really great place, and it was a great place for me to grow up because I spent probably 75% of my time in the woods and hunting with my dad, and just an unbelievable place, and it'll always be my home.
Sounds like a great childhood. So that you grew up in spearfish, and from my research, I found that you left spearfish for a little while, went up to North Dakota in Fargo for a little while.
Yep. Right after I got out of high school. Yep.
Yeah, and you went to a barber college.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, and one of my best buddies, his dad was the barber in my town at Spearfish. I always kind of was into looking good. I always had some kind of a hairdo, I guess you could say. And so, I had signed up at Black Hills State University to go to college. And when I went up and met with an advisor, I just wasn't into it. And so I talked to him, and I said, I'm really considering doing this. And so he said, hey, if you come back to town, you go to work for me. I'll help you get through school, and then you can come back to work, and you can pay me back when you get back here. And so I thought that's a good deal. So I went to Barber College at Moeller Barber College in Fargo. And
yep.
At that time, it was 1,550 hours to get your degree. And so I went up there, and it was just under a year. And then I went back home and cut hair in the barbershop there for 4 or 5 years. So
no kidding.
I still do it today. I still cut hair. Not at a shop per se anymore, but I keep my license up, and I still, cut my friends and some of the kids' hair. And when I'm in camp, sometimes I cut Waddell or T-Bone's hair. And,
I was going to say, do you cut Waddell's hair?
Yeah. That's why he's got half an ear on one side.
That's awesome. That is great. You guys spend a lot of time on the road, so I guess somebody's got to cut the hair, right? It's easier if you just bring your own barber.
Yeah, that's right. And I usually pack my tools. A lot of times guys ask me if I have my tools, and I just say, I got a pocket knife, so that might have to work. But no, I usually carry my tools with me. Just they don't take up much room, and I think it's kind of fun to bust them out. And
that's
give
cool.
somebody a haircut.
So you kind of you find you must find some relaxation in cutting hair in some ways, or to keep doing it and keep your license up. And I mean, because I think what you're doing now is probably pays better than what you'd probably make as a barber. It's my guess.
Yeah, it's good. This isn't something that you get rich at by any means. At least I'm, on my end of it. Maybe if you own one of these bigger companies, you can. But for me, happiness for me is living my life on my own terms. Yeah. Not having to report to a 9 to 5, and basically getting to live my life the way I want it. Having the ability to pack up and go when I want and where I want. Yeah. For me, that's payment. If I can be doing what I love to do, it's not like work. It does put me on the road, close to 300 days out of the year, and right. It does kind of limit you on what you can do as far as commitments, because we are so busy. But for me, it's just, I live and breathe hunting. I dream about it. I daydream about it, and it's something that I always wanted to make my life have something to do with animals. And when I was a kid, I dreamt of being a veterinarian in a zoo, but I guess I don't have enough brains to get through school, so I guess this is the next best thing. I always wanted to touch animals and get my hands on them, and sure. And so when I was a kid, my grandpa always took me out to his farm and would turn me loose, and I would catch snakes and frogs and turtles. Well, then kind of got to the point there was other animals that I wanted to get my hands on, but I just couldn't quite catch them. So I figured if I shot them, I could get my hands on them. So that's kind of how I became a good hunter, is by hunting small game, squirrels and rabbits and gophers and other things that ran away from me, like I said earlier. And so that really ignited my passion, and that was all part of it for me, was just being able to touch the animals and get my hands on them. And so I've always been an animal lover and an animal nut, and being in this position and getting to hunt for a living, for me, it's not about the money. It's not about signing an autograph or having somebody come up to me and tell me they like the TV show. For me, it really is being in the woods, spending my time, in nature, and then at the end, basically getting to put my hands on all these critters and put them on my wall. That's really what I love. So. Yeah, that's worth. It's worth more than money. It's basically what it comes down to. It's worth a lot more. It is for me. Yeah, it is for me, because you can work your butt off and work 95 hours a week and have a lot of money, but if you're not happy with what you're doing and you don't get any time to spend your money, then what good is it? So to me, my time is money. So that's what I strive for. Gotcha. So you took your skills as a barber, and you moved on. You worked at your buddy's place in South Dakota for a little while. But this love of the outdoors, this nature thing that you had to kind of tap into, you turned to becoming a guide. And, you don't just make a career out of it. You have to start somewhere. And it sounds like this is where you kind of went after spearfish. Yeah. I was actually working at the barbershop, and I just kind of felt closed in and needed to get out. A couple of my buddies owned a fishing boat in Alaska in Bristol Bay. And so I told the guy that I was working with that I was going to go and work with him on the fishing boat. And so I did that. But before I left, I started doing a little work with some guys over in Sundance, Wyoming. And I talked to Jeff Smith, who is an outfitter at 7J, and I had met him through another guy. And so they asked me to come and guide for them. I was doing a lot of hunting and shooting some pretty good animals, and Jeff and I got together, and he said, when you get back from Alaska, we want you to come and guide with us. And so I started guiding there at 7J, and I guided, I believe, full-time in the fall for about 5 years, and then I continued to guide there in the spring for 15 years total. I guided there at 7J for turkeys, and just really learned a lot there as a hunter, as a people person, learning how to connect with people and go one-on-one with people, helping them achieve their goals of, killing the animal they want to get. So after that happened, after all those years the guys from Realtree had heard about us, and they wanted to come and hunt with us. So Jeff made a deal with David Blanton, and he came to film a whitetail show.
Okay.
And so he and Bill came out there, and at that time at 7J, we guided for whitetails, mule deer, elk, antelope, and turkeys in the spring. And so they came on an archery hunt. First week in September, it was Bill Jordan and David Blanton, and I was lucky enough to guide David. And on that very first day, we sat down at lunchtime. I had always carried a video camera with me. I bought a video camera at Sears for back those days it was expensive. It was like $800. It was a digital 8. It was top of the line, had these big fat tapes in it.
Yeah, back then, that's a big deal.
Yeah. I took that thing everywhere with me, and I videoed, the scouting trips. I videoed all the animals. I videoed Jeff and Deb Smith, the owners of 7J Outfitters.
Yep.
They have 5 kids between them, and I videoed all their first turkey kills and deer kills, and then my clients in camp, I would video them. And so when David came, we sat down that very first day at lunch, and I showed him a bunch of my footage, and he said, "Man, you run a really good camera." He said, would you consider coming to work for us? And I said, man, that'd be like a dream come true,
That's awesome.
So I think it was that day, after the evening hunt, I went to Jeff and Deb, and I said, hey, David liked my footage, and he offered me a job to come to work for him at Realtree, run a video camera. And I said, man, that would just be like a dream come true for me, and they said, well, that sounds like a great deal. We want to see you do what you want to do, but we'd really like you to guide for us for one more year, because I was one of their head guides, and I ran a camp.
Yeah.
I think at that time I was probably about 25, maybe 26.
Gotcha.
And so I worked for them for a whole nother year, and then I went to work for Realtree after that. So
that's fantastic. So you were working for David Blanton at the time and running camera for David.
Yep. I basically was on a freelance basis, but I basically started working for them on the 1st of September every year, and I'd work all the way through January.
Okay.
And went all over the country, and in those first probably 4 or 5 years, I was pretty much Bill Jordan's right-hand man. I went everywhere with him, videoed all of his hunts, and again, I didn't have anywhere to be, because I was single and no kids or anything. So Bill just put me under his wing, and he flew in a private airplane, and we would just go from place to place to place hunting. And then sometimes in the middle, we'd take a couple days in Montana and jump in his airplane, and we'd head to Talladega and go to the race for a day, and then fly back and hunt some more. And then we'd go to Illinois, and then we'd go to Kansas. We just go all over the place. So it really gave me an opportunity to meet a lot of people in the industry, see a lot of really neat places. And, being with a guy like Bill, he's a gung-ho hunter, one of the hardest hunting guys that's ever, I've ever met. And, Bill had a family at that time, his son Tyler and his wife. And he was out on the road a lot, working hard, getting good video and hunting a lot. So I learned a lot from Bill in those early days. And I think it's really carried over to what we do now, just the I guess you could say the ambition to get out there and to get it done on quality animals. Really, Bill helped bring that out of me and kind of showed me the ropes. And I learned a lot from those guys. And David Blanton to me has been a super mentor. He's a very great Christian man and a good family man, and his values are second to none. And I have just learned a lot from those guys over the years. I just can't thank them enough for, the places that they've taken me in my career. And not only then when I worked for Realtree, but now, working for Bone Collector and actually working for them, hosting the Road Trip show with Michael and T-Bone as well. So, Realtree has just given me so many opportunities in my life, and just very thankful for those guys.
That's the two mentors that really kind of paved the way in the whole outdoor industry for quite a while, and it's that must be an amazing trip just to kind of ride their coattails for quite a while. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm not ashamed to say that that's exactly what it is riding their coattails, and same with Waddell now. Michael's opened a lot of doors for me and given me a lot of opportunities, and I'm just really thankful and humble because it's not a lot of people that get that opportunity, especially these days when there's so many TV shows and so many people trying to get into it.
Right.
I just feel lucky to be where I'm at, and the guys that have given me the opportunities are guys that I'm loyal to, and I'll never forget that.
Gotcha. And when did Michael Waddell come into your life? When did that all develop?
that year after I hunted with David, that very next spring, Michael had never shot a Miriam's turkey, and so he wanted to get his Grand Slam, so he came out, and I hadn't met Michael at that point. So he came out, I met him at 7J, and that was the first time I was going to be running camera. And so he came out, and we went hunting, we got him his first Miriam's, and I videoed the hunt. And I'm not kidding you, from the day he got there, from like 5 minutes after we shook hands, we were laughing and carrying on, and we were sharing a bedroom, and we would laugh. We would wake up in the dark laughing and go to bed at night laughing. And I mean, it was just like we were Siamese twins connected and lost at birth and then rejoined, at the hip. So we just hit it off right off the bat. And for us, it's nothing but fun. I mean, when we're trying to make our schedule out in the fall, we kind of have a few cat fights once in a while, arguing about who's going to go where and all that kind of stuff. But that's about it. I mean, we get along great. He's a great guy to work for. He has no ego. He's not a bully, and he's just a super easy guy to work for. So I've been blessed, with all of that. Not only him giving me my opportunities, but just him being a great boss and a great friend as well. So it's been really good.
That's fantastic. I want to transition and to start talking a little bit about some of your hunting techniques and things you've learned over the years. But before we do, tell me, who is this Michael Pitts guy?
Michael Pitts is a great guy. Got an unbelievable sense of humor. He was born and raised in West Point, Georgia, and he's a firefighter in West Point, and he has a little bow shop. In fact, T-Bone and Michael Pitts worked together for a long time at an archery store in LaGrange, Georgia. And so Pitts learned a lot of the stuff that he knows from T-Bone, and he is just a super funny guy with an unbelievable sense of humor, and he is country as heck. He's got that hardcore, heavy Southern Georgia drawl, and just a hoot of a guy, and he's starting to do some stuff on Realtree.com, and oh man, he's funny. If you've never seen him on there, make sure you go and check out
that's where
Realtree.com.
That's where I saw it.
On Realtree's Facebook page. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he's a great guy, funny, and a heck of a bow wrench. If he's got an archery shop there in West Point called What It Do Archery.
Very nice. He's got a great sense of humor. The stuff he was pulling at the ATA with you guys was just tremendous. And you have to go see the video to understand, but it's just a very quick sense of humor, and the humor is not what you expect, really. You wouldn't necessarily ask Michael, why does he have so many dumb catchphrases? That was one of the questions.
It just comes out of him. I don't know what it is about him, but he can come up with some crap. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Him and his dad have an uncanny ability to butcher the human language too. Instead of a jacuzzi tub, they call it a jacuda tub, or or Wrigley's Believe It or Not, or whatever. Those guys are kind of notorious for that.
Oh, that's perfect.
They come up with some funny stuff, and you never know what's going to come out of Waddell's mouth. It's great.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about some deer hunting now. You've been a guide. You've been in the woods. You've been hunting all over the place with some of the best deer hunters in the world. So you must have picked up on some things over the years and added some techniques, and probably had some failures that it made you a better hunter. And
there's no doubt.
I want to bring Dusty in here and see if we can break down some of those things, because one of the goals we have here on the Big Buck Registry is to dissect world-class deer hunters and find out what makes them so good, so we can make ourselves a little bit better in the field when we go out the next time.
Sure.
First thing we want to start out with, let's find out, do you carry a backpack into the woods with you?
Yeah, I do.
Let's lay it on the ground, open the zipper, and just completely run through what you pack with you.
Okay. Really, the main things that I carry in my backpack. First of all, one of my most important tools, and a tool that I completely feel naked without, and literally, is my easy hanger. I always have my easy hanger in my backpack, and first thing I do when I get in my tree is I hook my safety belt up, and I hang my easy hanger, and then I can hang my bow on that easy hanger. And I always hang it about 2 feet over my head, so all I got to do, whether I'm sitting or standing, is just reach up, and all I got to do is lift my bow up an inch, and it's off the easy hanger and ready to rock. So that easy hanger for me is a very important tool. I know you see the commercials with us saying, hey, we wouldn't go into the woods without our easy hanger, blah, 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 but it is the honest to God's truth. That easy hanger makes getting your bow ready and getting ready for the shot so much easier. puts your bow right in front of you, so you barely even have to move. So that's one of my main things. Along with that, typically when I'm climbing up into my tree, I like to have my binoculars and my rangefinder in my backpack, just because I don't like stuff hanging around my neck when I'm climbing, just in case something would happen, if I would fall. Once in a while when you're climbing up in the tree, your binocular strap gets hooked on something, and then you kind of pull and it snaps up and bonks you in the face. I've had that happen a few times. So I stick my binoculars and my rangefinder in my backpack, so when I get up in my tree, I flip it on, then I pull my tether through, and then I get hooked up to my safety system. A lot of times I also carry a small wind checker. I typically don't use a wind checker a bunch because I always feel like I can feel the wind in my face, and if my wind's not right, I never go to a stand. I always check the wind for the stand I'm going to be in. I'm always playing the wind. I think the best deer hunters, that's the most important element to killing big deer, is making sure you have the wind in your favor. A lot of times, I don't know if I really need a backpack. In colder times of the year, I might carry a couple extra heat packs in there if it's real cold. Cause sometimes definitely in November, I like to sit. The cameramen like to kill me sometimes because I'll sit daylight till dark, and sometimes it gets a little boring, but you just never know. I feel like I got a better chance of killing a deer if I'm sitting all day rather than sitting on the couch watching a football game. So I'm trying to think of what else I like to put in there. I mainly, just because the easy hanger is kind of long, and that's mainly the reason I carry a small backpack, is just to haul in my easy hanger and get up in the tree with my my binoculars and my rangefinder. And I typically carry a pull-up rope. A lot of stands I go to have a rope in them, but I think a pull-up rope is a pretty key element, especially when you're getting camera gear, bases, arms, the camera itself in and out of the tree. If I'm carrying a rope and my camera guy's carrying a rope, we can rope several things down at once, make the time quicker, because I feel like the more time you spend getting in and out of your tree, and the more time you stand at the bottom of the tree, that's more time that an animal can kind of sense where you're at and where your tree's at. So I like to get in and get out quick, try to disrupt the woods as little as possible. And just a few little things, years ago when I hunted with Bill Winkie a lot in Iowa, I was working for Realtree at the time, and at that time Bill just wasn't really into video, and he was a writer, and he was very scent conscious and just didn't really like the video kind of a thing. He just wasn't real into it yet. Now today's a different story. He's got Midwest Whitetail on the internet and on the Sportsman's Channel. It's very successful, and Bill is definitely a mentor to me and a guy that I really look up to. But in those early days, he had a suit that he wore, and he wouldn't let me take a backpack into the woods. So I would put my wrench for my base in my pocket, my pull-up rope in my pocket, and then I would take an easy hanger and put it in my pocket, and then just throw my arm and base over my shoulder and my camera over my shoulder. We'd walk in, and so we didn't take anything extra into the tree, just for scent purposes. And that kind of made me a little bit stealthier. Before I started hunting with Bill, I'd always take a big backpack full of crap that you never use, And when you got two guys in the tree with all the backpacks and stuff, you kind of turn into a big blob up there. So I think if you don't have a backpack, it makes it a little bit less conspicuous maybe. But if I do take a backpack, it's just to take those few little items, and my pack's usually pretty light.
Right, gotcha. What is there any particular backpack that you carry brand-wise?
Right now I'm just carrying a scent lock pack. It's a perfect little pack. It's got a small zipper on the front and a big compartment. It's got a couple of side pockets you can put water bottles in that are pretty nice. But that's pretty much the one I'm using right now, is just a small scent lock backpack. And then, of course, it's got scent lock technology in it, so you can activate it in the dryer if you want, and it'll absorb scent, from anything that's inside. Right,
for sure. We'll get into a little bit about your camouflage. Tell us what kind of camo you're wearing out to the whitetail woods.
Well, obviously I wear Realtree, and the extra patterns, the new extra patterns are phenomenal patterns. They've got a brown one, and they've got one with a little more green in it for the spring. And they're phenomenal patterns. Like usually, they blend in really well with the surroundings. But I think my favorite pattern is the Max 1. It's more of a Western pattern. It's kind of got a sagebrush look to it, and it's got a little bit of a green, almost like a glow-in-the-dark green look to it. And so it works really good in light colored trees, like if you're up high in maybe like an aspen type grove, or in some trees that are a little lighter or with less vegetation in them. And then it works really great, when you're elk hunting and antelope and mule deer hunting out in the West. You can really blend in, and if you got a face mask on, you can sit in the sagebrush, and it really is, to me, the best Western pattern out there. I mean, it's a pattern that you can disappear into the sagebrush with, and it's something I really like a lot. Even when I'm turkey hunting in the spring and then whitetail hunting too, it's a great pattern.
Right, for sure. Okay, so Realtree Camo. Tell us, before you go to the woods, do you do any kind of scent preparation as far as shower and scent control with any kind of shampoos or soaps?
Yeah. I think anything you can do definitely helps, and a lot of people don't think it works, and a lot of people don't do it because it's just extra steps. But once you get into the habit of it, it just becomes part of your routine, and then it's just like old hat. It really doesn't bother, But what I do is I use all the scent lock liquids, shower with the scent free soap, and then I like to activate my scent lock garments in the dryer, put it on high for about 20 minutes, and activate it, and then put it into one of their scent lock bags, and it keeps that stuff really nice and fresh. And so when you get out of the woods, then you put your camo on, get zipped up, wear the head mask or one of the neck gaiters, and I think it really helps with your scent. It's just a routine that everybody should get into, and some people think some people don't believe in it, some people do. But I think that anytime you can, take advantage of the technology that is out there, especially with the scent lock products, I think you can help yourself in certain situations. Maybe it's the wind gusts in a different direction for a couple minutes or 2 or 3 gusts. It may be the difference between a deer smelling you and thinking, hey, this guy's a mile away, or this guy was here yesterday. Maybe it doesn't completely turn the deer inside out, and it gives you that extra 2 or 3 seconds per shot. So I think anything you can do to maximize the effectiveness of scent control, I think, is a good thing.
Right, for sure. Couldn't agree more. What kind of boots do you wear when you're hunting?
I have a couple of different styles of boots that I wear. Sometimes I wear a rubber boot when I'm in the whitetail woods and it's fairly warm. But I really like to wear more of a mountaineering style boot. It's a boot made by a company called Ozolo. It's ASOLO, and they make a really stiff, rigid mountaineering boot that's great when you're in elk country or sheep country. It keeps your feet from getting fatigued. They've got good soles on them and very stiff. It's almost like wearing a ski boot. Some people don't think they're very comfortable, but once you've worn an expensive pair of boots like that, it's kind of tough for me to go back to a cheaper boot because when you're in that rough country and rocks and stuff, it keeps you from spraining your ankles. It keeps your feet from getting torn up. We actually at Bone Collector are now coming out with a new line of boots from Old Dominion. We're going to have a really great line of rubber boots. There'll be kind of neoprene top on them with a rubber bottom. And we'll also have several types of very good hiking style hunting boots. And we'll also have a line of shoes and then kind of some slip-on camp type stuff. So be looking out for those new Bone Collector line of shoes from Old Dominion. They're going to be coming out really soon. And we sat down with the guys from Old Dominion and told them what we wanted, and they built us a line of footwear that's phenomenal. And I think the hunters are really going to like the rubber boots there.
Yeah, good to hear.
It's going to be a really good line.
Nice.
The great thing is you guys know what it takes to get in the woods and what you need to have the comfort and the support. And you've been there, done that, so that, couldn't have a group of guys that had more experience with a pair of boots on their feet. Pretty interesting. We got into your backpack. We got into your camouflage and some scent control. What kind of bow are you shooting?
We shoot Hoyt. We're big fans of Hoyt. We've all shot Hoyt for years, and we believe they're the best bows on the market. They're tough, they're forgiving, very good bows. And right now I'm shooting the Carbon Defiant. It's the newest bow in the line. And I was shooting the Carbon Spider, which is also an awesome bow. And then last year I shot the Carbon or the Nitrum, which is a machined aluminum bow that's just phenomenal. And all the new products from Hoyt are about to hit the market here, and got some really great stuff. So
awesome. What kind of arrows?
Right now I'm just shooting some gold tips. I kind of split my year last year. We were kind of in a transition period on our arrows. We have been just kind of shooting a little bit of everything. But last year I used some gold tip hunters. I think they were Hunter 350s, and very good arrow. Shoot straight and tough, and really liked them a lot. So we'll see what happens next year. I'm pretty sure we'll be shooting those again.
What kind of broadhead are you guys tipping the arrows with?
We are G5. If you like a mechanical, I like mechanicals myself, and I think the most important thing when you're shooting a mechanical is to shoot a rear deploying mechanical. I feel like your kinetic energy goes a lot further when you have a rear deploying mechanical. It doesn't have to fold over itself. The blades hit and they just deploy backwards, or straight out the back. And sometimes I think some of the broadheads that have a fold over type of a mechanical on them, if you hit a severely quartering animal, or maybe if you hit a rib or something like that, it can rob you of kinetic energy, and you may not get as much penetration as a rear deploying mechanical. And I just really believe in them. And then a couple of those arrows, a couple of those broadheads, are the T3, and then the Havoc, and super razor sharp. The guys at G5, they're made by Grace Engineering, and the Grace brothers and their dad are very, very sharp guys, engineers, and they're in the scalpel business. They're in the medical field, and they make really super sharp things, and so it's perfect for them. They make these broadheads that are razor sharp. They have some of the broadheads have what they call a Lutz blade. It's a German engineered blade that's the sharpest on the market, and we really love them. And then when you go to their fixed blade broadheads, they've got the Striker and the Montec, which the Montec is a fixed blade that doesn't have replaceable blades, but it's sharpenable, very, very tough. And the thing about G5 that I like is they're all steel. There's no aluminum in them, and so they're solid steel broadhead. And the Striker comes in 100 grain and 125 grain, and it's the replaceable blade, fixed blade. And you talk about a power wagon. I mean, it punches through everything. I've shot bears and elk and moose and everything with that, and they just make a really great product. They stand behind it. Like I said, they're steel. There's no aluminum in them, so they're a very tough broadhead.
Awesome, good deal. What kind of tree stands are you hunting in when you're whitetail hunting? We're kind of across the board. We've got a bunch of different stuff that we use, to be honest with you. We're kind of in talks. We're trying to get a stand deal going with the company now, but over the years we've used Ameristep, and there's some other stands that we use. But when we get out there, it just kind of depends on where we're going, and a lot of times I take a trailer and I've got about 6 or 7 different kinds of stands, and then it just depends if we're hunting with an outfitter or a friend of ours that has farms. Sometimes they have stands hung, so we'll hunt whatever stands we have to hunt out of to get the job done, I guess, at this point. But we don't have a brand that we're really pushing right now. So that's okay. Yeah.
Anything that's safe and good, and one of the things that I always tell people is please wear a safety harness. Nowadays, they make these lifelines that, once you get up in the tree, you attach it to the top of the tree and attach it to the bottom of the tree. And as you're going up in the tree, you slide the knot up. And if you're in one of those lifelines, you may fall, but you're not going to fall far. And I know several people that have fallen, several guys that are in wheelchairs now for the rest of their lives, and have even had a friend that, passed away from falling out of a tree. And it's just very, very, very important that you use a safety harness, and Hunter Safety System makes probably one of the best on the market. So that's a good thing for everybody to get into.
Yeah, for sure. We couldn't agree more with that.
Nick, take us on a whitetail hunt. Let's do that. I want to think of one of your most memorable deer hunts you've had over the last few years. And is there one that comes to mind?
Well, there's quite a few, to be honest with you. There was one that happened this year.
Okay.
I was hunting in Illinois,
okay, and
I had a little bit of a rough year this year. I ended up shooting some nice animals, but it just wasn't as good as my last 3 years in a row. I had a great year. Last year in 14, I shot, I think, 24 animals in 2014.
Okay.
So my 2015 year, I think I ended up with only 6. But I hunted hard and things just didn't go my way. So I went to a friend of mine's place in Illinois, and we had been getting pictures of a really big buck there. He was a big 10-pointer, real heavy, long points, and I figured he was in the mid-170s. And so I went there and I hunted for 5 days with my bow, and we never saw him on the hoof, but we were getting pictures of him almost every day. And I knew he was on his feet. I knew he was moving heavy. Yeah. And we saw several other really good bucks. I didn't have a shot at any of them, but on Friday of that week, the shotgun season was coming in. And in Illinois, you can't bow hunt with shotgun season.
Okay.
And so I had 3 days of my hunt left. And so if I wanted to hunt and try to fill a tag and finish out the show I was filming, I had to hunt with a shotgun. So on that Friday, there was a huge storm coming in, and this cornfield that I had been getting pictures of this buck, he was coming through this little funnel area out to this cornfield, had been picked only about 2 or 3 days before. So I knew this field was fresh. I knew these deer were going to be pouring into this field because this big storm was coming. I mean, it was supposed to be like 8 or 10 inches of snow.
Right.
And so.
What month is this, Nick, by the way?
This is in November.
November, okay.
And mid-November, yeah. And so my camera guy from Realtree Road Trips and producer Stephen McNally was with me, and I said, we got to get up to that field and we got to get in there. These deer are just going to pour out of there tonight because there's a big storm coming. I just felt like they were going to be on their feet and moving. So we got up, we walked up to the field, and when we got in there at about 2 o'clock, there was already a few young bucks that were feeding in the field. And so we just kept inching up through this field, and this is a big slope coming down this field with a deep draw that kind of went on one side of it, and then on the other side of the field was another deep draw. And so there was kind of a dome in the middle of the field where, if a deer walked out, he could kind of come out, and if you went to the left, he would kind of disappear over a little hill,
Right.
And there was corn on the other side of the hill and corn on our side. Well, we decided we were going to get on the I guess it would have been the west side of the field facing the north, and the wind was directly in our face from the north. So I had a really good feeling that this buck was going to come out of the northwest corner where we had been getting pictures of him. So we got set up underneath this big tree on the ground. I was sitting behind an old log, and the deer started pouring out, and all of a sudden it just started snowing like crazy. I mean, huge flakes, and it was beautiful, and everything was just happening. All of a sudden I look up, and up at the end of the field where the woods was a bunch of pines. I could see a buck making a scrape, and it was a buck that we had also had pictures of, and we had nicknamed this deer Freak Nasty. He's a mainframe 10-pointer with a whole bunch of stickers. Just a 3-year-old buck, but in the 170s. I mean, a monster. And so, I was really thinking about shooting him. So he started walking our way. Well, then all of a sudden he kind of turned, and he went over that little hump in the field, and I had my gun on him, but I could only see the top of his back and his rack. So my camera guy was kind of sitting to my right and a little bit behind me, and so he could see a little better than I could. And so he got pretty good footage of the buck, but I just couldn't quite get a shot.
Yeah.
So he kind of went over the hill, and I knew he was just feeding over the hill where there was a patch kind of out in front of us of standing corn that the farmer had kind of done a turnaround there, but missed. It was about the size of a pop-up blind area of corn that was still standing, just a small little patch. So what I thought about doing was sneaking up to that patch and just seeing if I could peek over and get a shot at that buck,
Yeah.
And most people would say, oh, he's just a 3-year-old, but I don't pass up 170s, okay? I don't care if they're a year old. I don't pass them up. So,
Right, okay.
So I was good. I was thinking about going after him, and I kept saying to Steven, my camera guy, I kept saying, what do you think? Should we go over there and light was starting to fade, and he said, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it. And I said, okay. So I said, turn the camera on. So he turned it on me. I said, all right, we're getting ready to go after this buck. We're going to sneak out there and get to this little patch of corn, and I'm going to pop up over, and I think we're going to get this buck killed. And just then I looked to my right, and the big buck that we had been hunting is making his way through the timber 60 yards from me. And I say to Steven, I said, oh my God, here's the big one right here. Because I was afraid to go after that other deer, because I just knew when I got out there in the open, the big buck was going to come out and see us.
Of course.
That was my gut feeling.
Right.
So luckily I him-hawed around just long enough, and I look over, and here he comes. And as Steven's videoing me, you can see over my shoulder in the background, he's kind of blurry, but you can see the deer walking through the trees. And so I moved over a little bit. Steven zoomed in on the deer when he stopped, and he's kind of looking around, and he's 60 yards at the most.
Yeah.
And so I just had borrowed an old single shot 12 gauge slug gun, and I shot it 2 times, and it was dead on. And so I just cocked the hammer and put it on him. I said, you got him? And he said, yeah. And I shot. When I shot, a bunch of dirt and snow flew up in front of me, so I couldn't even really see what happened. And then there was a huge tree that the deer ran behind, and I didn't see where he went. So I looked at Steven, and I was all excited, and I said, what happened? And he said, I don't know. And he was like, I didn't know if I hit him or not. I was kind of freaking out a little bit because it's a big buck,
Yeah.
So so we got up, and we walked out into the field, and I looked up, and the deer only went about 25 yards. And, man, I was just elated. And he's just a bruiser of a buck, huge long points and 40 inches of mass. You know, he's got kind of short main beams. His main beams were only 21 inches, and that was a little bit deceiving in the pictures I was seeing of him. So,
Yeah.
you know, I thought he was probably at least a mid-170s deer, but he ended up being right at 170. And still, for me, you know, one of my top 3 bucks of all time, and just a great hunt. You know, to be able to see a buck that you had pictures of, and you know, just put the plan together, and when your gut tells you it's going to happen, and then it does. That just makes you feel good as a hunter, because you know, I've put in a lot of time on this deer, and really it was the deer I wanted to kill, and was a little bit sad that I didn't get to shoot him with my bow, because had I been bow hunting, he would have walked almost right underneath the stand I was going to hunt. So so a little bit, you know, sad because I didn't get to shoot him with a bow, but nonetheless, I mean, I was so pumped to walk up there and get my hands on this buck. I was just elated. So that's one of my more recent big buck stories that, you know, it still sticks in my mind, and hopefully it won't be long, and I'll get him back from the taxidermy shop. So that's what I'm looking forward to now.
And that was the Freak Nasty buck, you said.
Well, that one, gosh, I can't even remember what we were calling this one. What were we calling that buck? And I can't remember. The other one was Freak Nasty because he had all these points and stuff.
Gotcha.
This one was called. Geez, I can't. I'm at a loss right now.
I'm sure it'll come to you as soon as we hang up.
Of course, yeah. Of course, you name some of those bigger ones, you know, and some people think that's goofy, but when you're you know, with a group of guys and you're all looking at deer all the time, and then you start talking about these deer. Well, I saw this deer, that deer. To have to say every time, you know, that big 5x5 with a crooked brow tine that comes out beyond his ears, blah blah blah. It's just way easier to give him a name. You know what I mean? So it's one of our favorite pastimes is to name bucks, and Dusty's got me going on it, and now I do it too.
I love it.
Yeah, and when you have a piece of property, even if it's public land that you go to, and you know, you see bucks from year to year, and unfortunately for me, I don't own my own land, so it's fun for me to get on a piece of land that I have permission, or even on a piece of public ground, and take pictures of deer and try to figure out deer from year to year and watch them grow up. And you know, each time you go out there to check your camera, you know, you see what's moving around, and it's just really exciting. It's like Christmas every time you go out. And now today, you know, Bushnell is the camera I use, and they've got a new camera that is just phenomenal, and it'll send you pictures to your cell phone. So it's great in several ways. You know right away when the deer is there in that area, and plus you don't have to go in and put your scent down or screw up the woods. You just get a picture of the area on your phone, and you can tell what's moving and what time they're coming and going and what time they move through, and you can tell, you know, when a buck starts to move during daylight hours. And I think that's a really key element in shooting a mature buck. If you have a deer that's in an area and you have almost exclusively night pictures of that deer, chances are, you know, in that early part of October when your season starts, or September, you know, unless you're early September and they're coming out in the daylight and they're real visible and patternable like they are in the West, you can count on that deer is going to continue to be nocturnal. And so I think the best thing to do when you're chasing a deer like that is to wait until, you know, especially, you know, I know it's a little tougher if you're hunting ground where a lot of people hunt, or if you got to share ground with guys. If you have a little piece of ground that you're hunting on your own, especially, if you're seeing a deer that's nocturnal, I wouldn't even hunt him until he shows up in the daylight. When he starts showing up in the daylight, you know he's on his feet, you know he's moving, and that's the time to move in. You're going to have a really good chance of seeing him and a really good chance of killing him. But if you're hunting a deer that's nocturnal and you're just going into his territory and you're laying down your scent, you're moving around, and you're letting him know that you're in his core area, I think you lessen your chances of killing that deer when he starts to move in daylight, because he knows you're onto him. If you can stay out of the area, and I know guys love to hunt, and I know they just love to get out and get in the stand, but those big mature bucks, there's one thing that gets them killed, and that's the ladies. And until they start to seek ladies, you know, they're going to be nocturnal, and they're going to be out in the dark only, and you just kind of spinning your wheels if you're in there chasing them in the daylight. You know, now that doesn't go for everywhere. Obviously, if you're hunting public land and you got a lot of different people moving around, it might move deer around, so you might have a chance. But I just really believe that if you're on a big deer and you're getting a lot of serious pictures of him, if he's showing up on a daily or a couple times a week basis, he's there. He feels at home there. He likes it there, and he wants to stay there. So wait till you see him in the daylight to get it to move in, and you'll have a really good chance of killing him.
That's a great tip. I love that. Very, very nice. That was a great hunt, man. You were very detailed, and it's like we were sitting there on your shoulders. That was a great story. Thank you for telling that one.
Oh yeah, it's just so great when it happens, when it all comes together. And so many times, like I say, hours and hours and days and weeks and months in a tree, and it doesn't come together. But when it does, man, you want to talk about a good feeling. Holy smokes! You want to shout and scream, but you end up whispering.
That's right. There are not too many feelings in the world that make you feel like that after you put so many hours in, and it finally comes together. Completely agree. So I have 10 kind of quick questions here for you, and we'll get you off to spending more time with your girlfriend instead of spending time with us nutheads.
She probably needed a break anyway.
Gotcha. Good answer. That's pretty funny. All right, so what's your number one hunting tip of all time? There are a million, but if you had to pick one, one.
Definitely hunt the wind.
Okay.
Never, ever, ever, ever go against the wind. I mean, you've always got to keep the wind at your face. If you're hunting a big deer and the wind's wrong, it's never going to happen. If you're going after an elk and the wind's at your back, you may as well go back to the truck. So it's all about the wind.
Very nice. All right, you kind of touched on this one earlier in the show, but I wanted to kind of make sure this. What's that one thing that you have to have with you every time you go in the woods or you feel naked?
My most important tool when I'm hunting is definitely my rangefinder.
Okay.
It just takes all the guesswork out of bow hunting. I never leave it. If I leave it, I go back for it. I'd almost rather leave my bow and try to throw my binoculars at a deer and kill it rather than leave my rangefinder at home.
Right.
It's just such a valuable tool, whether you're rifle hunting, shotgun, muzzleloader, or bow hunting. It's invaluable.
That's a good one. I have to agree with that. I've had some experiences where it just didn't go as well when I didn't have it, but when I did, things happened the way I wanted them to.
Yeah, and with the rangefinders we use, the Bushnell rangefinders, they have the arc technology in them, and it gives you the compensated angles.
Yep.
So if you're on a steep hill shooting straight down, it's going to tell you, how much you need to shave off. So if it's a 26-yard shot and at a steep angle, it's going to tell you if it's 24 or 20. And they really take the guesswork out of having to hold high or low or whatever. So They're a very valuable tool.
Very cool. All right. What's that one favorite book that you have about hunting that maybe you shared it more often than not? You've read it more times than others. What's that one book or reference that you go to in print?
Geez, that's tough for me. I don't do a lot of reading, but a book that I read that was really exciting hunting book was a book called The Great Brown Bear Men, and it was about two gentlemen from Alaska. Pinnell and Tallefson were their names, and just a bunch of really cool stories about brown bear hunting, the size of the bears they killed and the adventures they had. And that was a good book for me because that was a species that I always dreamed about hunting when I was a kid. I've been lucky enough. I went to Russia and I got 2 years in a row and I got to shoot two great big brown bears. I've never shot an Alaskan brown bear, but that's a book that always just kind of sticks in my mind because those guys just did some phenomenal things way back in the day with those big old brown bears. So my life is so hectic, to be honest with you, I don't get a ton of time to read, but that's one book that always kind of sticks in my mind.
That's cool. Very nice. All right, so how old are you today, Nick?
I'll be 43 on Sunday.
43. All right, well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
By the way, that's great. 43. What would the 43-year-old Nick Mundt tell the 20-year-old Nick Mundt now, knowing what you know today?
Well, the first thing I'd tell the 20-year-old Nick Mundt is open an IRA, maximize it, put the maximum amount of money you can in it, and when you're 43, you'll have $1 million in your account.
That's probably the best tip we've heard on this show ever.
I had a guy, this is no kidding, when I worked at the barber shop, there was a guy that lived in my hometown, and he was a single man, had been single all his life, and lived in a trailer house, drove the oldest $200 or $300 car he could find.
Yep.
Saved his money, and I kid you not, if it wasn't every day, it was every other day. He came in the barber shop, and he was always giving me good advice, always. He told me almost every time he came in, he asked me, did you start your IRA yet? Did you start your IRA yet? And, I didn't. I never did because I wasn't making much money, and I felt like I couldn't afford it. And when I look back on it now, if I would have just listened to him and paid myself first before I paid anybody else and opened an IRA, if you open an IRA when you're 20 and you maximize it, put as much money as you can into it, by the time you're 40 or 50, you'll have $1 million in your account. and you'll have your retirement set, and you'll be good to go. And so I wish I would have listened to that advice. It wasn't until about 15 years after that I finally opened my IRA, and I wish I would have listened to him because it was great advice, and I'd have a lot more money today if I'd have listened.
Yeah. I think some of the most fascinating conversations occur in a barber shop, and I think at some point, because I have the same experience when I go see my barber, and it's an old school barber type style, we have the you can listen to all the conversations they're having, and I swear that whole aspect deserves its own podcast, the Barbershop podcast. It's fantastic stuff.
I don't know what it is about when people go to the barbershop, but they just spill their guts, boy.
They really do. It's awesome. All right, so
I was cutting a guy's hair one time, just real quick.
Sure.
Old guy's
Sure.
hair. He sat down in my chair, and I said, "So how's things going?" I was putting the cape on him, getting him all ready, and I said, "How's things going?" He said, "Oh, they're going pretty good." He said, "Today's my 50th wedding anniversary." And I said, "Wow!" I said, "I can't imagine being that old, let alone being with a woman that long." And he laughed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I said, so how was it really? How was it? He said, "Man, it's been like 5 minutes." I said, "Is that right? That's great." He said, "Yeah, underwater." So I thought that was a pretty funny story. You hear a lot in the barbershop.
I hope your girlfriend.
Anyway.
I hope your girlfriend's not sitting next to you.
Yeah.
No, she's locked in the closet. I'll let her out when it's all done.
Gotcha. All right. So, Nick, you're at a convention somewhere. You're at the ATA convention, and you're at the hotel, and you're in the elevator. Somebody steps in, and they strike up a conversation, and they ask you what you do for a living. What do you say?
I tell them I'm a hunter. I tell them that I host a couple of television shows on the Outdoor Channel, and I'm a hunter. I've been in the hunting business for the last 20 years, and that's what I was raised doing, and that's how I make my living.
Nice. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
You know what? It's my favorite meal of the day, and I wake up and I cook every day. I cook breakfast. So this morning I had bacon, 2 eggs, and 2 days ago I made a huge batch of gravy that I sausage gravy, fry up some sausage, and then I make gravy and biscuits. And so I kind of eat some of that throughout the week. And so this morning I had 2 eggs over easy with gravy on them with bacon on the side.
Yeah, man, that sounds awesome.
I love to cook.
That's cool. That's very cool. All right. If you could have a billboard and you can say anything you want, it's a blank slate. You have your own billboard. What does it say on the billboard?
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
You can do a hashtag. You can do anything you want. What does it say?
How about you can't fix stupid?
That's the truth.
That is the absolute truth.
That's billboard this side of Mississippi.
I say that a lot. Yes, very much so.
That's a tough one. I don't know.
That is a tough one. All right. So when you hear the word successful, who's the first person that comes to mind and why?
Ooh, man. I somebody that I think is successful, the guy that would probably come to mind to me would be Bill Jordan.
Yeah.
Take a guy that, basically started his company from nothing and has built it into an empire. Very happy along the way doing it. Got to hunt basically as much and as often and as many places and whatever he wanted to. And all in all is very happy and healthy. And so when you think of success, especially in hunting circles, you think of Bill because he's done it all. He's pretty driven. Doesn't have to go to work, but he's at work at most days. So I guess as far as hunting goes and hunting business, I definitely would think of Bill.
Bill Jordan. Very good answer. All right. What's a day in the life of Nick Mundt look like?
Well, it just kind of depends on the day. I will say that my life is pretty versatile. I'm pretty lucky in that way. Like on a normal day when I'm not
when you're not
at
working,
an appearance.
Yeah, like when you're not working. What's that like?
When I'm not on the road, I'm pretty chill. So I get up out of bed in the morning and make a pot of coffee, and I love Sports Center. So I usually catch the first episode of Sports Center right off the bat. Get out of bed for that noon Sports Center.
Yep, sure.
And I really can't sleep in, so I get up pretty early and get a pot of coffee. Usually make myself some type of breakfast, like I said, and then I don't know why, but I like to pick up my house and keep it clean and get my laundry done. I don't like my laundry to pile up, so I usually do whatever I got in my basket every day. I do my laundry and then I just kind of take her around my house. So I've got I've got a cabin. I'm from South Dakota, but I've got a cabin in Georgia that I spend quite a bit of time at.
Okay.
It's on the Chattahoochee River. So I spend some time down there, and then I spend some time in South Dakota. But when I'm down there, I tinker around in the yard, into my garage, and I just try to make it so I really don't have any obligations. I keep my schedule as open as I can when I'm at home, and just kind of do what I want to do. I really don't have any kind of schedule.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of nice. Take a nap if I want to.
It's the best kind of schedule to have in a lot of ways.
And a lot of times I'm on the road, so I don't get to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
the very few days I do get at home, I like to just kind of relax and take what comes at me, I guess. I don't really get too schedule orientated. So
300 days out of the year, you're usually on the road. And what's a day in the life of your work life look like?
Well, when I'm, a lot of those days are hunting. I spend September, October, November, December, and usually part of January in the field, and then April, May, half of March, April, May, and then into June I spend turkey hunting and bear hunting. So, I'm on the road September, October, November, December, 120 to 150 days in the fall, and 60 to 80 in the spring typically. So a lot of that's hunting, and when I do appearances and stuff, typically if I'm doing a sports show, I'll travel on a Thursday, do a show Friday, Saturday, Sunday, travel home on Monday, get caught up on expense reports and paperwork on the Tuesday, hang out on a Wednesday. Maybe on a Wednesday or Thursday I'll have I have to go into the office and do interviews for shows. We get in front of the green screen and do our interviews for our television shows. We produce 20 original episodes a year for Bone Collector and 13 for Road Trips. So there's a lot that comes with that. Sometimes in the middle of the week we do commercials, photo shoots for companies. This past week, in the middle of the week, we did the Squirrel Master Classic over in Alabama with Jackie Bushman and the guys at Buckmasters.
Yep.
So the middle of the week is kind of reserved for, getting caught up on paperwork and stuff around the office. So, and then, if we do an event, a lot of times at the event, we'll be at a booth signing autographs or taking pictures with fans, selling hats and T-shirts. And then a lot of time at those events, we'll do an hour seminar, usually like twice a day. And so we get up there, and basically in our seminars, we like to keep it more of a question and answer type of a deal rather than try to get up there and teach somebody something.
Yep.
I feel like people have unlimited resources on the internet. So if they really want to learn, a lot of people do that. So I don't want to get up there and make it seem like I know more than people do about hunting, because I know there's a lot of guys that aren't on TV or they don't write for magazines that are as good or better hunter, than I am. So I like to answer questions that people want to hear, and we kind of make it like a campfire. We're all in a hunting camp together around a campfire, and people can shoot questions, and maybe I'll start off telling a little bit about myself and where I came from and how I got here, and then it kind of helps people to relax a little bit, and then people can ask the questions they want to ask. So that's kind of a day or a kind of how my week goes, I guess you could say, with kind of the show circuit and the appearances, I guess.
Gotcha. Sounds busy.
Yeah, it is. It's busy. It's busy. But cool. I enjoy traveling. I've been living out of a suitcase for 20 years. So.
All right, so you're used to that.
I got a loaded question for Nick here. Who's the better hunter, you, Waddell, or T-Bone?
Ooh.
That is a loaded question. I think T-Bone's definitely the best shot on all of us. I think T-Bone, is definitely the most limited, just because of his physique. He's a big fella, and he's not really made for the mountains. He's a whitetail hunter pretty much, and but he does like to hunt hogs and stuff like that, and he'll shoot a turkey now and then. But I'm not going to say that I'm a better hunter than Waddell, because he is one of the best hunters there is. I mean, when it comes to elk and turkeys and deer, Michael is a phenomenal hunter, and he gets it done. So I can assure you, if you're somebody that's a guide and you got Michael Waddell going with you, when the opportunity presents itself, that arrow's going to be ripping right through the animal's rib cage when you're hunting with Waddell. So he's a great hunter.
Sounds like y'all pretty good hunters.
I guess I'm going to say Michael.
Michael, all right. Very nice.
I was going to make you answer that. You was taking the easy way out.
You tried. Hey, Nick, this has been awesome, man. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you for a little over an hour now. And where can we find you when you're not here on the mic with us, on your social media, your websites? Where can we find all that stuff?
Yeah, on Instagram, it's Nick's Big Game, and on Twitter, it's also Nick's Big Game, at Nick's Big Game. And you can go to I have two sites on Facebook. One is my personal page. One is like a public figure entertainer type of a page. And so I'm getting ready to switch all my stuff over to that because I just can't accept any more people on my personal page, and I need to move that over so that more people can follow along. So I'm going to be combining that. Yeah, I want to be combining that all into Nick Mundt on Facebook.
Gotcha.
And then I have a new website that I launched not long ago. It's nickmundt.com.
Okay.
And I've got a bunch of stuff on there. There's going to be new stuff coming all the time. And you can also, check out, obviously, our bonecollector.com and our Bone Collector page on Facebook as well and Twitter. So we got a lot of stuff out there on social media.
Very cool. Thanks for joining us on the Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast.
I really appreciate you guys. Thanks. And keep doing what you're doing, and we'll see you down the road somewhere.
Sounds good. That's one class act right there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Very professional and very knowledgeable of what he's got going in the whitetail woods.
It's amazing. We talk to a lot of really good hunters, and you never really know if you're going to get somebody that we have to prompt to talk, or if we can. You can tell the guys that are the professionals and have been in front of the camera for a while. And Nick was right there. I mean, he was spot on. He got detail oriented about all the little stories, everything he was telling us. Just our favorite kind of interview to have here on the show.
For sure. The detail is something that we really pushed and strive for, Jay, and celebrity hunter like Nick there, you didn't really have to dig too deep. It just naturally come to the table.
Just awesome. So thank you, Nick Mundt, for joining us on the Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. And Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week this week?
Well, absolutely, Jay.
Well, all righty, man. The Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
My Chubby Tines tip of the week is take care of your landowners that you get permission from. If you're somebody like myself that doesn't have a nice piece of land to hunt, and you got to reach out to a landowner, just don't forget them. They allow you to hunt. And stop in, shake their hand, take them a fruit basket. You can buy a fruit basket for $14 to $25, and that's something that really goes a long way with your landowners. And just a little thank you and appreciation for allowing you to hunt. That's just something that over the years for myself and a lot of people that I know, I've spread the word to just get them some little something, tell them thanks, shake their hand, and when you stop back in there this fall, that little fruit basket sticks in their mind, and it's a whole lot easier to get that next year's written permission.
That is probably one of the best things you can absolutely do. Very nice. Well, thanks to Morse's Sporting Goods for sponsoring the Chubby Tines Tip of the Week. Thanks to the Eurohanger for sponsoring the Deer News. Thanks to Parker Maloney for helping us with some of our background music. Thanks to Nick Mundt for joining us on the Big Buck Podcast. And thanks to you, Dusty, for joining us right here as my solid co-host, a pillar of this organization. And where can we find you when you're not here hanging out with me on the mic?
Thanks to you, Jay, for being the host of the Big Buck Registry and all that you do for the listeners and yourself and myself and everybody that's involved.
Very cool, man. I appreciate that. Where can we find you?
Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. You can shoot me an email right here at the Big Buck Registry, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. Shoot me an email, any questions, concerns, and you can also look me up on Instagram @ChasingAntler. Jay, where can people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
First and foremost, I would invite you to join us on iTunes. And you can find us at bigbuckregistry.com/iTunes. Obviously, if you're on an Apple device, all you have to do is type it into the browser, and it'll go right to that place. If you would like, we also have an app. If you'd like to listen to this show on our app, it's bigbuckregistry.com/app. And we also have a Google app. If you're on an Android device, it's bigbuckregistry.com/G-app. And very, very, very soon, I hear it's this month, but I haven't heard it yet officially, that the podcast directories will be featured in Google Play. I don't know when that's happening. Supposedly it was happening in February. We haven't seen it yet, but stay tuned for that. And when that does come out, you can actually listen to our show using Google Play, using the app for Apple or for Android. So it's going to cover all spectrums, which is going to be very, very cool. If you'd like to send me an email, my email address is j@bigbuckregistry.com. If you want to touch base with Dusty, obviously Dusty at bigbuckregistry.com, or Jim, our news anchor, Jim at bigbuckregistry.com. You can find us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/bigbuckregistry. If you have a picture of a fantastic buck that you'd like to get featured and highlighted on our Wall of Fame, our Facebook page, just go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck. If you love this show, we could really use some help from you. This show does not kick off without supporters and sponsors like yourself. You can donate to the cause if you wouldn't mind. Don't dip too far into your wallets, but if you can spare a couple bucks a month, that would be fantastic. You can go to bigbuckregistry.com/donate, and all the particulars about that are right there on our patron account. You can become a patron of the show. You can donate $1 a month, $2 a month, $5 a month, 10, 25, whatever it is. And there are different layers of that. And we actually have some things we're going to send you if you do sign up. So that's bigbuckregistry.com/donate. You can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. We're on Instagram, which is bigbuckregistry.com/Instagram. And finally, and last but not least, you can find us on Clamor. And if you'd like to check out the Clamor app, or if you have an iPhone, it's bigbuckregistry.com/CLAMMR. I think that's everywhere we're at, Dusty, and that's a lot of places.
That's everywhere, a big buck everywhere, a big buck.
Yes, sir. I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Big Buck Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.